This was my grandma's, and while she's been gone for 20 years, I want to see if I can bring this table back to life. About a year ago, I was visiting my sister, and when I was getting ready to leave, she said, "Oh, hey, I have this table. It was grandma's. Mom painted it. It broke. I'm not going to fix it. Do you want to try to fix it? Otherwise, I'll just throw it out." And I looked it over and hesitated because it can be a lot of work to repair a broken piece of furniture. It didn't look too bad, and I thought I can probably fix it without too much trouble. And because it was my grandma's, and I only have two things from her, and my mom painted it, and she's been gone for 15 years almost, it did mean a lot to me to have this piece. So I decided I will try to fix it. It's worth it. I want to keep this to remember both my mom and my grandma. So we will see if I can pull this off and bring this back together and at minimum paint it. But I really hope I can do something more special than just painting it. But we'll see as the project unfolds. Before starting any repairs, because this is an older piece and I don't know what decade my mom painted this, I need to test for lead just in case it has lead paint. I've never had to test for lead before, so this was kind of fun for me to try out a lead test and see what I get. It's kind of like a surprise package. You know, you open a little package and what's the toy inside type of a thing. As long as I read the package right, it appeared that this paint did not have lead in it. So this should be good to go to work on as I normally do. So after looking the piece over, you have to kind of assess, what do I tackle first? How can we put this back together? This little piece that was broken off of the leg has to be glued back on and become very secure because it looks like it's been glued on before and broken off. So I think I need to nail it on this time, which will affect the overall appearance, but I'll try to make it hidden as best as I can so that this is strong and won't break again. So I'm sanding all the glued areas to get excess glue off and just kind of get it cleaned up a little. And again, just look things over again, assess, is this drawer okay? It's wonky and it's warped, but I think I'm not going to try to change it because it's not completely necessary. For the rest of the piece that's still assembled, I'm looking it over and tried to see if I could just hit it with my rubber mallet and get the nails that were nailing the top onto the base to go back in and hold, but it did not. It was still gaping, and it's going to need taken off, and then I can reattach it later and make sure it's nice and strong. So all those nails need to come out, and I'm not worried about salvaging those nails. I'll just get new nails. For the framing of this, with the tabletop off, I decided it looked weak and like it wouldn't hold very well, so I'm taking all the legs off and the side portions off so that I can clean them up and get them fitting really well. I am labeling them just in case, because it's an older piece, you want to put things back the way it was so that it's more likely going to be square and fit. So I'm numbering each piece of where it went so I match the numbers up when I go to put it back together. Obviously, the piece that was already off, I don't know which side it went on, so I'm not going to worry about that, labeling that one. But once I had that base all taken apart, I decided to work on the tabletop, which I'm just, again, sanding the glue off. So this is all a part of cleanup. And I laid all the parts out just to let it freshen up and get in the sun. And this took me back to a previous project I did. If you saw my antique desk flip, oh, that was a lot of work. But this one, I have a lot of hope that it is not going to be near as hard as that antique desk. So I cleaned up with soapy water all of these pieces. You wash them, let them dry, and then go back and rinse them. Here's what I'm hoping I can do with this piece more than just repaint. I'm using my carbide scraper to see if I can peek at the wood underneath and if it potentially is worth sanding all of this paint off so I can get a wood grain, wood stain, paint the base, and do wood grain on the top. I think that would look really cool. But before I sand all that, I'm going to go ahead and scuff sand the rest of this piece. And I was impressed with how well this paint held up for decades. There were barely any scratches on it, and it held hard. It was like hard as a rock. I was shocked. But I just scuff sanded this to get it ready to paint. So with my sander, orbital sander, I went to it on this top. I decided I'm going to knock it out, and it took some work. It did not come off easy like old paint normally would. But after a lot of determination, I was able to get both sides completely sanded down. I used 100 grit to get the paint off, so now I'm doing the next step up, which is 120, to start getting some more of the red out and any other dings and nicks. I don't know what kind of a red stain this was, but it was bizarre to me. I'm just imagining what this table looked like with that bright red stain, and I'm like, this is awful. Definitely needs a refresh. As I always do, I incrementally do 120 grit to get the majority of things, dings, nicks, and top layers off, and then I come in with 180. This is a little more refined, getting a few more dings and nicks out and stains, and then you come in with your 220, and that's the final grit to get you ready for staining. And at this point, there's still some red in it, so I'm going to have to figure out how to stain this and hide that red. If you've seen my recent videos, you'll know I am totally into this pre-stain right now because I feel like it helps give a nice, even stain. I'm loving it. I am starting on the underside because I want to see if I can do 2 stains to try to hide this red without going red in my stain. Obviously, a mahogany or a red oak type stain would color, like kind of blend in the red, but I don't want it red. This is going in my house, and I honestly do not like red stains. So I'm going to pre-stain it and let that sit for a little bit, and then you come back and wipe a little of the excess off. And then I'm going to come in with mahogany, and I'm going to do a quick stain over of this. Again, I don't love dark, but this is going to have to be a little dark to cover the red, I'm thinking at this point. Again, it's the bottom side, so if it doesn't look that great, I can leave it. I don't have to redo it, and I can try something different on the top. But once I got that all on, it sits for a little bit. You want to come back and maybe touch up, do a quick wipe over, make sure it's evenly on. There's a project that I don't have the video out yet, but I didn't do that, and I came back once it was dry. I saw some streaks, so definitely do that. Now, once the mahogany was dry, I came in with Early American, and this Varathane stain I've used in the last couple videos. Loving this brown. I should have bought a big can. Oh well, because I'm going to use it up on my next project. Anyway, I came in with the brown to see if I could tone down the red. And once that dried, I was pretty happy with it. It's darker than what I would prefer, but it looks awesome. You cannot see the red, so this is a win. I wasn't going to do this because sometimes the underside of things is usually unfinished, but I decided to put a coat or two of polyacrylic just to seal it up and make it strong and durable. And I did this while I still needed to work on other parts of the project because I want this to be fairly set, not 30 days fully set, but at least fairly dry, a couple days dry before I go to put it on. And then I will finish staining the top side once I've attached it to the piece, but I need to assemble the piece and paint the piece, and then I will be ready to put the top on and stain it because I have to nail it back onto the piece and patch the nail holes. So I'm not staining the top until it is attached. But this way, the bottom side can dry while I work on all the rest of it. Now on to the other parts. This is a lot of gluing and letting things dry and assembling. So first, I'm sanding the areas that had glue and they need cleaned up so that they're a nice solid fit. Once I'm done with that, I moved on to the broken leg. And I already sanded that down, but now it's time to glue it on. I thought I could glue it and then immediately nail the nail in, but this wood was hard. So I messed up the nail, and it was not working, so I had to pull out that wonky nail and just glue it on and clamp it and let it sit. So while that is sitting, I worked on the drawer front, which had a corner that needed patched and glued back together, and I just held that with tape. And then the nails all in the front needed set back down in, so I could come in with wood filler and fill those in and let that dry. Once the leg was dry, I could come in. I nailed 2 nails into it. I was a little nervous because I didn't want them to go sideways and poke out. And one of the 2 kind of pushed the wood out to the side, but it didn't break it. And the other one was fine. So I was like, it's as good as I can do. I'm not a carpenter, so this is it. There was a little sliver on one of the frame pieces that needed glued back down. This is just where you want to make sure you're getting all things patched so that when you go to paint, it is clean and smooth and ready. The frame fell apart even more as I was working with it, so I had to glue the main pieces back to the center frame. And once all that was dry, which this, takes a day or 2, I'm ready to come in and assemble the frame because everything's in one piece. Now we put the pieces together to make a whole piece. And I just used some glue on each piece and slid them in, and with my rubber mallet, made sure that as best as I could, I got it together and square. And then I came in with my clamps and I clamped everything together. I think I used all my big clamps and let that sit for a day. With that assembled, we're ready to paint. But I'm going in with this shellac because I'm not sure how well my paint will adhere, and I did not want to mess with a primer. The primer I currently have is supposed to be a really good one, and a piece I'm working on it didn't work well on, and it's not the primer's fault, it's the pieces, but I want something fast and easy for this project. So I primed with shellac, and now I'm ready to come in with paint. And I have a paint that I got off the Mist Tint counter at Lowe's, and it is Evergreen Fog, I believe, from Sherwin-Williams, and I'm like, what? This is so popular right now. How is this a mist tint? But I was glad to pay half price for a popular color. So this is what I am using this on. And I figured my mom painted this green. And what better color to pick than a shade of green that is super popular right now to paint it. Now, often I see people, or I've even tried painting things upside down first, but I chose to paint this starting right side up because I wanted to paint the bottom side of the feet, and I needed that to not be wet when I flip it upside down, but I don't need to paint the top side. So I painted it top side up first and then flipped it over, and I let it dry and came back and did a second coat a few hours later, and it looks all beautiful. I came in with toothpicks and glued and shoved them down into all of the holes and let that dry. Now that that's done, we are ready to put the top on. And as you look at this, you can see it beveled. I don't remember it being that bad when I took it off. So as it sat and gotten damp with the stain and stuff, it's arched up. And I don't like that, but I'm hoping with the nails and the glue, it will hold it down flat and it'll be fine. So I spent a lot of time trying to line this up perfectly so no one nail would go through the side of the base and poke a hole. So I put all the nails in the holes that were already there originally and spent a lot of time looking underneath and aligning it. And I clamped it down, and I was getting ready to nail the nails in, but thankfully I remembered, oh yeah, I was going to glue this too, just to make it extra strong. So I had to take that off and spread the glue out around the frame top, and then we're back to spending a lot of time making sure I got it all aligned. These parts are stressful to me because I really don't want to mess up the work that I've done. It's like I was sweating. I was like, okay, let's get this right. I mean, I wasn't like panic attack stressed, just wanted it to turn out right. So once I got it clamped in, I went in with my hammer and just nailed each nail in very carefully, and then came back with my screwdriver and tapped the nails down in a little deeper. One, to make them hold, because with just nailing them flush, because there was already a hole there, it was not pushing it down flush against the base. So doing the screwdriver, tapping them in deeper made them more flush. And then I came in with more clamps and clamped every corner to make sure it held. And then I was able to come in with my wood filler and fill every nail hole and then just let all of that sit and dry overnight. The next morning, I sanded every spot and then cleaned everything up with mineral spirits. Now, I want to point something out. You can see the cloudy parts where I sanded. And I should have sanded a little bit more around every hole so that only the hole had the filler and not like there's like a faint spread. You'll see why after I stain it, why I should have sanded a little better. But you're always learning with projects and it's fine. So again, I'm doing the pre-stain and letting that sit for just a little bit. It does not need to set long. This time, I wanted to see if I used just the Early American, if it would be enough to cover the red, which there's more red on this side than there was on the back side. But I was curious, so I put the Early American on, and after it dried, I thought it looked good, and I would have left it. But my husband thought the bottom side looked way better, and he's like, no, do the second stain. And I was like, but I listened to him. And I put on the second stain. I kind of tried to wipe it off pretty quick so it didn't sit. And because I did the opposite the other time. I did the mahogany first and then the Early American. So I did it opposite. So I didn't want a lot of the mahogany on top. And it was darker than I wanted. And it also, you can see these light spots around every nail hole. And that's because I left too much of that filler dust kind of spread around each hole. So it would have been less visible if I had sanded better. So just letting you know, in case you do a project like this, sand it better. I also think I should have just left it with the Early American. I don't think I needed the mahogany. I think it would have been fine. So once that's set, what I thought was enough time to set, I put on a top coat of poly. I got flat this time. I had to buy a new can, as you saw on the bottom side. I used up the can that I had. Flat and satin, I think, look pretty much the same. But this one I got in flat. And once that dried, I came in and scuff sanded a little bit. And I noticed that the holes that I patched cracked, which tells me that it did not fully dry before I did a top coat. Which, if you watched my last video, I just did the same mistake. This probably happened probably at the same time because I'm working on multiple projects together. So that was disappointing, but at least I was already planning on keeping this piece. So I just went in and sanded those down lightly after letting them sit for multiple days to see if any more could dry up. Once you get so many layers, the bottom layer really can't dry because the top layer produces a hard coat and nothing else can evaporate. And so you just have a problem at that point. But it's a small spot, so I just scuff sanded those with 220 grit sandpaper and did a light sanding over the whole piece and went in with a fourth coat of poly to see if that would help anything out. And it did. It was better. So after drying for a couple days, I came back to this piece to put it all together and stage it and show you the final reveal. And the drawer front pulled away from, like, this was not like this when I painted it. And it blows my mind. I don't even know what happened. I mean, it's been damp out and it's been in my garage, but this was so confusing to me that just the bottom side of the drawer front pushed away from the drawer. I don't know. I'm going to leave it as is. When you put it in, you can kind of see that it pushes out a little and is a little wonky. I'm like, whatever. It's just going to be what it is. It's a little vintage tabletop kind of shabby chic look anyway, so a little bit of wonkiness is fine. I used a little Howard feed and wax along the drawer glide in the bottom of the drawer to help it glide a little bit better. Let's look back at where we started. This cute little table that could have ended up in the trash. salvaged for memory's sake. I think my mom and grandma would be pleased with how it turned out, and I'm so glad to have this in my house to remember them by. So I hope you've enjoyed all of this and that I'll see you in another video, but please enjoy this final reveal and I'll catch you at the end of this reveal. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, here's 2 other videos that I think you might enjoy.